The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. Brian David Andersen is our special guest this hour. www.trivortex.com is his website, and we're going to be starting off today's conversation about the latest update in the Gulf crisis. Last week, we were told, hey, the new valve is working. Today, it's, guys, we have a problem. Joining us now to talk about that and much more is our good friend, Brian David Andersen. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Oh, very good. Good to be back on.
It's great having you with us, Brian. What's going on in the Gulf? Now, as I remembered over the weekend, everybody was so happy that this new valve that they put on seemed to be working. We didn't see any oil gushing out of the broken well. It seemed like they had finally got their act together. And this morning they're saying, well, we may have a problem, Houston.
Well, again, first off, it's 5,000 feet that it's down supposedly, so they could be making anything up. We would never know what is real and what is not, even if they had ships in the area, and that's one of the excuses. I was talking with one gentleman. He said, well, they got ships everywhere. They couldn't fake it, and so when you're at 5,000 foot depth, you can fake anything you want to. So that's when it came down, I went, I don't really, I doubt what they're telling us the truth. And we now have some new developments, though, that kind of corroborate that. And that has to do with a television station in Alabama. They went and collected samples various places on the beaches. They went to where they have the barrier set up for the oil, and they went all over. And they then took it to a chemist, and the chemist, before he said there should be 0 parts per million of oil whatsoever in this water, if it's really clean. They said before the accident occurred, that's what the rates were. And then they got all these wild rates back. They got as high as 22 parts or 221 parts per million, which is very high, and it should be anywhere between 1 to 3 parts per million. And if it's really good, it should be 0 parts, but nothing should be there. So 221 in 1 billion parts is a lot of contamination. Then they also went to, again, where the booms were. They were blocking, supposedly, the oil, and they collected some oil there. They took it to the lab, and he did the same test that he was doing before, and he put an inorganic solvent inside of his jar to test this particular ocean water. About 1 second later, it exploded.
Wait a second.
And blew the container, blew a hole through the container. The glass container got blown apart.
By the ocean water?
By the ocean water.
Brian, stand by. You and I have got to come back and discuss this on the other side of this 2-minute commercial break. X-Zone Nation, Brian David Andersen is our guest. www.trivortex.com. That's www.trivortex.com. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break talking about the ongoing oil crisis in the Gulf of Mexico here on the X-Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Take a step back in time and discover old Florida cuisine at Marsh Landing Restaurant in Fellsmere. Enjoy delicacies such as frog legs, gator tail, catfish, and swamp cabbage, or enjoy the more traditional cuisine like hand-cut Angus steaks, ribs, and seafood. Join us for breakfast with a southern flair featuring sweet potato pancakes, biscuits, and gravy, and much more. Planning a party? Marsh Landing's private dining room can accommodate groups from 8 to 80 people. While you're visiting, enjoy the historic pictures, artifacts, and stories that line the walls. Marsh Landing is truly a unique experience. Marsh Landing Restaurant, 44 North Broadway in historic Fellsmere, or visit marshlandingrestaurant.com. Marsh Landing, Old Florida cuisine at its best. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Brian David Andersen is our special guest. And Brian, before we went to the commercial break, you were saying that a chemist put some of the water from the Gulf of Mexico into, I would imagine it's something like a beaker, added something to it.
Inorganic solvent.
Inorganic.
Basically should be benign. It shouldn't be flammable, explosive. He had done that with other samples that were taken on the beach, various other areas, but this was just on the other side of the boom where it was blocking the ocean oil from coming in. And so now he picked it up, and now this is now having the ocean oil itself. And the beaker, the beaker literally has a hole in it. What I recommend that people do is to go, if you want to find this, just go put Corexit. That's the name of the dispersant they have now been using, supposedly. And it's Corexit, Corexit, and then just put explodes. That's all you have to do is put in any search engine, put those two words in, and you'll come up, and it has the television program. This is actually a television report by a local television station in Alabama.
Now, Brian, what does this tell you?
Well, this comes from two different ways of analysis on this, and it's not very good. So you just got to kind of sit down when you're listening to this one. First off, if this thing exploded, there are two reasons why the water would explode. The first reason being it means that there is a high concentration of methane. Mm-hmm. But methane will not, I believe, it will cause a flame type of explosion, but it won't cause a powerful type of explosion to take that beaker apart. If you put it in methane, it'll explode, but it'll be more of a flame type of thing than power. But it could be if the concentration is high enough, then maybe it could be powerful. So that means also that it's what we were talking about before, is that what they're showing us on this video, live feed video, is not really oil. Basically what we're looking at is some sort of thermal geyser of natural gas, and being methane being one of the major gases. And the actual oil leaks are coming from other parts. And so what we're really seeing is the cover story per se. But that methane, though, is now coming in very high concentration parts. It doesn't just go to the surface and dissipate. The actual ocean water itself will hold, and again, also when you mix that with the other oil that is actually present, then you'll have these high concentrations of methane. So that's one side of this, is that they're not telling us at all about the methane levels. And then basically, again, what's going to take if there is a concentration area and something like that, that whole area could do the same thing. It could explode. So we're dealing there with a whole thing of cover-up on the methane. Now, the next possibility is having to do with this Corexit. However, Corexit, its base chemical element that makes it work is sulfur. And that's why a lot of the people are getting sick, is because they're going out and being in the, basically it's sulfuric acid to a certain degree. They have a lot of other chemicals that are involved in Corexit, but its base chemical element is sulfuric acid. And that's very deadly for humans. And it's also extremely explosive, too. When you put other chemical elements with it, like they were doing this organic dissolvent, that will give you a tremendous, powerful explosion. Now, here is the downside of this, is that when you go up on the Corexit website and you look at what they say about Corexit, that it's non-flammable, they also say it's biodegradable. Well, this then, if it's not the methane, and then they're going to blame it on the Corexit, what it seems then is if methane is eliminated as being what it made that tube explode, and then here we have Corexit that is supposedly non-flammable and biodegradable, we now left with a very, very horrible type of alternative, in that they added to the Corexit, or they haven't been using Corexit at all. They've been using direct sulfuric acid.
So what would happen,
That
Brian?
would be basically, as far as I'm concerned, that would be a genocide. That would be a murder. That would be an act of war. And so this just occurred, and so we're now I'm following this. There is also about 5 days ago, I got contacted by somebody who's now involved into the cleanup of this, and they want to possibly use Trivortex as a peripheral type of thing to help structure their particular type of chemical elements that are used for dispersants on this, which would be something of a alternative to this Corexit, and also clean up and that type of thing. And this person has a very high security type of clearance, has been very much involved in government for many years. I've known the person for 15 years. And he is also now informed me, and this is again kind of an exclusive to X-Zone, is that they're now looking at fish kills in lakes across the eastern United States, and they're now getting reports because of this now. If the sulfuric acid, the methane wouldn't do it. The methane would not go into the atmosphere. The only thing that would go in to the atmosphere and get into the weather patterns would be sulfuric acid. That's the only thing that could get into there. And once that's picked up and those vapors are picked up, basically you're taking the sulfuric acid and dumping it on the ground, dumping it everywhere. But the most vulnerable species, per se, to the sulfuric acid would be the fish. And here's a real kicker, is that they're now finding fish kills in North Dakota.
What would happen if someone took the same chemicals that the chemist used to cause the beaker to explode and by accident put these chemicals into the Gulf of Mexico?
Yeah, that's where, again, see, this is all, this is, again, preliminary. This just came out in the last 24, 48 hours of this television station doing these testings. And so there's just a lot more questions. They have to do a lot more testing to find out now what is actually on those, in the chemicals that are basically in the Gulf, because now what's happening is that what they did is that shows the picture where they collected it, and these booms are now set up, so this is blocking the water from coming in. And so on one side you have just more clear water, on the other side you have now the oil concentration, that type of thing. So what we're looking at here is not a great situation, because here we're getting contradictions, because Corexit and their chemical, the company that makes the chemical, says it's non-flammable and biodegradable. And so that means that if it's biodegradable, it couldn't get into the atmosphere. The only way, and the weather patterns. And so the only way that can happen is if that means that they increased the concentration of the sulfuric acid within the Corexit itself. And again, what that means is they would, once it hit the water, part of it would go into the atmosphere, the other part would mix with the oil, and then basically push the oil down further in, so it couldn't be seen on the surface. That's what basically, they say it's a dispersant, but it's more of pushing the oil to the to the lower levels, so when people fly over and look at it, you can't see it. You can see sort of being a little dark, but you will not see the massive oil spill that you would normally see had you not put the core exit on it. So we're dealing with a Rob. This is crime beyond anything that's imaginable.
Who do you think?
This is criminal.
Who do you think the criminals are in this case, Brian?
Well, again, we have to look at what's so amazing is why has the United States government not taken over this? They put everything into the hands of BP, and that's just that. I don't understand that. They should be no longer having anything to do with this. So basically, then we have to look at who are the executives of BP. Where do they go back to? And of course, then you keep going back into the ownership of it. You find the American investment groups. J.P. Morgan is a really heavy investor in BP. You have the British royalty. You have Peter Sutherland, who is their CEO, who is now basically the financial advisor to the Pope. You get up some real high type of people, and basically that's who we have to look at is why are they doing this? And basically, it's interesting. We have British Petroleum, and it's almost like again, it's a British company, and here we revolted so many years ago, 200 plus years ago, and now it's like this is an assault. I mean, what else? When you're putting sulfuric acid into the ocean, and they know very well that it's going to go into the weather patterns, I don't think that this just cannot be a mistake. But they're too smart to be a mistake.
But the United States government at this point must know what is going on. Thad Allen must know what is going on. President Obama must know what is going on. Like this is a conspiracy of gigantic proportions.
It's just well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news for people, but again, this is the stuff. This has just come over. It's interesting. You came and asked me to be on the program today, and this all came about in the last 24, 48 hours that I found all this information. And again, I recommend that type that core exit into the search engine. Core exit explodes, and then just core exit, COREXIT. And please, all your listeners, do your own investigation and come to your own conclusions. And my conclusion is this is a crime.
All right, stand by, Brian. You and I have to take our commercial break with the news at the bottom of the hour. Exonation Brian David Andersen is our guest. He's the man behind Trivortex. Website is www.trivortex.com. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
And David Andersen is my special guest this hour, Exonation, www.trivortex.com. And Brian, I remember you were with us 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about the Gulf disaster. And listen, I want to thank you so much for keeping on top of this and for joining us here on the X-Zone. We sincerely appreciate the hard work that you put into these reports. And we were talking, Brian, about oil seeping out or coming out of the ocean floor. Why did it take the United States government and BP 2 weeks to come up with this when you said 2 weeks ago the exact same thing they've just said?
And again, I think that was actually what originally occurred in the first place, is that they started having cracks, and then they had to create a crisis, and that they may have taken down exploded the Deep Horizon, and then created this vent. Basically, it was a geyser of gas. And they said that's what the problem is. When in actuality, the problem was that it's actually creeping and seeping out of cracks in the floor. That could have been the whole thing, the scenario, from the very day one beginning, and most likely was.
You know, the some of the headlines today are just pointing at BP in a way that I haven't seen headlines really targeted. For example, this is from the Financial Post. Oil spill puts a target on BP's back. You know, and then some of the other headlines.
Well, but the only thing is again, this is what I was, saying from the original thing when it occurred, is that we need to get the attorney generals involved in this now, and not just of the United States, but of the states, the Gulf states. Now, with these fish kills that are occurring, and again, this is not really known at all very much. It's not been brought on the media about the fish kills in North Dakota. Now you've got other states that can get involved in this. Once they can prove that, the sulfuric acid is in the circulation and it's actually harming them, then you have all the state attorney generals in the United States, and then if it goes into Canada, which it probably will, then those provincial governors have the right to go ahead and bring criminal prosecutions, but they have to have the fortitude to do it. And to me, that's going to be the real answer. And when you have the Financial Times saying target on their back, well, the target has to be made by law enforcement or by attorney generals. And until that time, all it's going to be is just headlines, nothing else. And then BP is going to skate.
You know, and if people are thinking that BP and investors are not making money because of this, you are so wrong. For example, Halliburton, which has their little fingers in this entire scenario as usual, their profits rose 83% in the second quarter, which equated to $483 million.
Yep. So the crisis per se, and again, I really want to try to change the vocabulary here, because we have the Gulf of Mexico crimes. This is not a spill. This is not a crisis. This is crimes from day one, and the crimes just continue. And especially, I am really, truly hoping, Rob, I really hope that when they do this testing, that it comes back that there's high concentrations of methane. That's already a horrible type of scenario, and it basically, it again gives the cover, because then if this methane vent is what's causing it. But if that, I'm really hoping that's it, because if it's not, then the only solution, the only answer of the reason why that laboratory ocean water exploded is because of high concentrations of sulfuric acid, which means is they've been dumping high concentrations of sulfuric acid into the ocean, not Corexit.
Based on your research, Brian, have you found any other time when sulfuric acid has been used as a disbursement agent?
Well, yeah, the Alaskan Corexit was also, that's what they know, that in Alaska, that Valdez...
the Exxon Valdez,
yeah. There. Yeah, and so basically they found that the marine mammals, all the seals and anything that came in contact with it, literally the brains were eaten out by the sulfuric acid. And it's been banned in the North Sea. You cannot use, if they have an oil spill, you can't use it there. So they already had a history of Corexit. and basically what they're, that's again a sulfur-based product, and they already had a history of it, and they already had a history of disasters with it too.
Now, whose idea was it to use this disbursement agent?
Well, I'm sure it was BP, but at the same time, though, it was their planes that did it, and that's what's also so crazy is why is a corporation now that caused this? It's like, again, the wolf is in the
chicken coop,
the hen house,
yeah.
And basically, then they're trying to supposedly do the solution for it, when that wolf should have been literally, taken out and then disposed of, and then you take care of your problem. This is just insanity to have BP, and especially now with all the blackout that has occurred around the area of the media, where our First Amendment of the United States Constitution is just gone, and it's the Coast Guard is backing up, and so our local police departments backing up BP security. That is just it's insane. This whole thing, from you look at it from so many different angles, is just insanity to its highest. And when they look back at this thing 200 or 300 years from now, and they go through all the papers and everything, they're just going to shake their heads. And then basically what I think, though, that they're going to do is basically because of all this chaos is still coordinated. I think it basically still is. This is on a timeline. They're doing what they're wanting to do. It has been. And even though it looks chaos on our surface, especially when you get to your media and to other types of surface levels, at the deepest levels, this is following the pattern that they wanted, and it's on schedule.
Who do you think? Who do you believe is behind it, based on what your research has shown?
Well, again, we have organizations such as the Council on Foreign Relations. We have the Trilateralists. Go read their papers. What they're always saying now is that they want to reduce the world's population by 2/3. This is a great way of reducing population if they want to do it. So again, regretfully, when you look at everything, banking, you look at CFR, you look at who founded the CFR, you also look at the Queen of England, everything regretfully all goes back to one source, and that is the Jesuits in the Vatican. The Queen of England is a Dame of Malta. When you're a Knight of Malta, you are a soldier for the Pope, period. That's it, nothing else. Your allegiance is to him, any constitutions, any governments, your first allegiance to them. And if you look at who the banking, and you go up all the way through the levels of BP, you find like the Queen of England is a Dame of Malta, which means she gives her allegiance to the Pope, not to the English people, not to royalty. She gives her first allegiance to the Pope. And so you have the founders of the CFR, the founders of the Trilateral Commission. It all regretfully goes back to one source. And that's what I'm saying is that it may look chaos on the outside, but when you take it down and it all narrows like a little straw, and then basically gets down to a real thin line, and it all goes and it revolves around the Vatican and the Jesuits, regretfully. And I challenge anybody that's listening to this, do your own research. Start looking back up, but look at the titles of the individuals, and you'll find very prominently there, Knight of Malta is a Dame of Malta is very, very prominent. Then you also find that the individual has been educated at a Jesuit college, specifically Georgetown and Fordham University. So you ask who it was. That's what my research over the years has said, that basically who has led all of this thing about population control, all this propaganda that we need to go green and reduce the population. It all comes out of Jesuit universities. Every bit of it. Go look it up. If I'm wrong, go look it up. Is that all of the authors of this come out of Jesuit universities?
So where does President Obama fit into the grand scheme of things?
Again, he was a individual that was educated at Columbia University. His top person, his handler, his mentor was Zbigniew Brzezinski. And Zbigniew Brzezinski and Henry Kissinger are both senior fellows at Georgetown University at the Center for Strategic Studies. So here we have two right and left type of persons, supposedly. They're both senior fellows at the Center for Strategic Studies at Georgetown University. And you don't get to that position because you create your own policy. You get to that position because you're following the policies dictated to you. And Brzezinski was the mentor to Jimmy Carter. He was also the mentor to Pol Pot of Cambodia. And again, you think I'm making this up, go look it up. It's in public record. He basically, Pol Pot, who murdered millions of people in Cambodia, was under the tutelage of Zbigniew Brzezinski. And so here's the same person who is under him is also now the current president of the United States. And now there's so much evidence now that has been presented. Even he himself, there's now a video out. He admitted that he was not born in the United States. And now Occidental College, AP News, didn't hear very much about it, but AP News released it. And Occidental College released the records, and here it was. The name that was put on there was not Obama, but was Barry Soetoro. He was a scholarship under Fulbright. The only way that you can have a Fulbright scholarship at Occidental College at that time was to be a foreign student. And that was what his record said, was Barry Soetoro. So we've already now, they control everything. They took a non-American, not born in the United States, tutelaged and run and basically trained by Brzezinski, and now put him into a position of the President of the United States. That's how powerful they are. So we have a formidable task in front of us, but the major thing is now is that we get fully informed of what's going on.
So how do we turn this around? First of all, how do we clear up the mess in the Gulf of Mexico? How do we save all the marine life? How do we save all the wildlife? How do we get the people who have lost so much because of this disaster? How do we get their lives back?
One of the first things is that we have to find out what really happened. What is really happening, pardon me, we have to find out then is what really happened. Is it because, are we looking at a gas geyser, and then basically the whole bed itself is leaking now because of so much drilling that has occurred over the years? It's not just the Deep Horizon disaster, but because that there's been so much drilling over the past 25 years, has this now caused the whole bed of the Gulf of Mexico to fracture? And if that's so, then tell us. Then we got to deal with it. Mm-hmm. But now again, is if they can also use this. There's so many levels they can use this, because then there'll be such a way of a crisis. Then we have to declare martial law and clear out all the coasts. And of course, then that's exactly what they've wanted for a long time, is to have martial law, suspend our Constitution, and basically then put everybody under some sort of police type of rule. That's been again, go read the papers of the Council on Foreign Relations, read the Trilateral Commission. What do they want to do? Their papers are right there. They're not on CNN. They're not on other places, but you can go right to their website and start reading their PDF files, and it's horrifying of what they want to do. So they're basically right now, we're now going into phase one was, setting this all up. Mm-hmm. And it looks like they're now pushing this thing into phase two of, to me, it looks like they're really trying to do something with this population control, either reduction or control the population. And this is it. It's a great way to do it, and I'm now convinced this was not an accident. This was pre-planned probably 15 years ago.
Heavy stuff, Brian.
I live in Florida, so if it blows up, as I said, I'm right in the tidal wave. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a possibility, is if some tests go right, that I might be involved in some of the cleanup, and I won't know anything for another couple of months or something. But I do sleep at night. I was shouting all this material, and I was trying to get people to listen back in the late 1980s and early 1990s. I said the Federal Reserve was not part of the United States government. The bank was not part of that. I kept saying all these things back in the 90s, and everybody, I got blown off, and trying to make things about the Council on Foreign Relations and other people who had done research, and when I had done my own research, and also trying to bring that basically all of this goes back to the Pope, and it goes back especially
Brian, stand by. I've got to take my break. Brian David Andersen is our special guest, www.trivortex.com. We'll be back. Don't go away.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
19 Sergeant Central. 19 Sergeant check. Officers on the scene.
Hi, I'm Larry Lawson, host of Paranormal Stakeout. With over 36 years in law enforcement, I have learned a few things. The most important is the proper gathering and preservation of evidence is vital to putting the bad guy behind bars. It's no different in the world of paranormal investigation. Whether it's the search for the afterlife, cryptozoology, UFOs, and extraterrestrials, how we gather the evidence, preserve that evidence, and present it to a jury of our peers will make the ultimate difference in proving the existence of worlds and entities that are beyond our imagination. Join me, Larry Lawson, every week on Paranormal Stakeout when, along with my guests, we'll take a journey to prove with indisputable evidence what man has struggled to believe for centuries. Go to xzbn.net for the broadcast schedule and check me out at paranormalstakeout.com.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A soul balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world.
Brian David Andersen is our guest, www.trivortex.com. Brian, the Vatican, why does the Vatican have so much power then if it's out to destroy so many people on this planet?
Well, again, what you need to do is go to just type in, anybody can type in the Jesuit oath, and this Jesuit oath was put into the congressional record, the United States congressional record, around 1900. It has never been challenged. It's never been, the Jesuits have never come forward and say this is not correct, this is not true. Just read their oath that they take. And this goes back, we don't think that we're connected to history 500 years ago, but this still goes back between the rift between the Reformation of the Protestant Church and the Catholic Church. And again, we also have to discern here that there is a city-state called the Vatican.
Yes.
Then there is this Catholic Church. There are 2 separate entities. They're run by the same person. In 1867, the United States government broke all diplomatic relations with the Vatican, and it was over the Lincoln assassination and other attempted assassinations of other presidents, and that's why they broke the diplomatic ties. But they did not break ties with the Catholic Church. They didn't repress, they didn't try to squelch the Catholic Church and Catholicism in the United States. They broke diplomatic ties with the Vatican, which is a totally separate entity from the Catholic Church. The Jesuits are in line with the Vatican. They have nothing to do really with the Catholic Church. That's what a lot of people don't realize. And so, but the Vatican still is basically, they have wanted world power for 500 years. And if, again, go back to the history, go look up the history of the Jesuits. They've been kicked out of 43 different countries over 500 years because of their political involvement in those countries. And it's basically was the foundation for the French Revolution. The French king kicked out the Jesuits. They then formulated a plot and did the French Revolution. The French Revolution was a Jesuit-run operation. So, again, if you don't believe me, go look it up, people. So there's a lot more to it. What I want to also say here in the last moments is hug your children, have fun, but also try to be informed. What we may define our lives over the next 20 years, and maybe even be 200 years, is there was life before this Gulf crimes and life afterwards.
But those who
right now we're...
But those who are responsible for these Gulf crimes must be brought to justice.
And I think the way that's going to be is that basically it's going to be the state attorney generals and the provincial governors in Canada. Once it reaches up there, that's where we can have the power. We can have the power in that area, and it's going to take political activism at the state level to get the states to sue and also to bring criminal charges against the people of British Petroleum, which basically you could still bump it all the way up.
Brian, I hate to do this, buddy, but you and I are out of time for tonight. We'll have you back next week for another update, and I still want to talk to you about your new JFK book that's coming out. Brian David Andersen, www.trivortex.com. We'll be back on the other side of this break with the news as the X Zone continues from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.